Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. Eric, what's going on, man? How are you?
Just enjoying my day, Conrad. Enjoying the hell out of my day.
Man, I am so excited to talk to you about this. I've been itching to pick your brain about the biggest news that's come down the pike in professional wrestling, story-wise, in quite a while. Of course, we're live here at 83weeks.com on YouTube, so if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so you don't miss us the next time we're live. But keep those questions coming. I know you want to ask Eric Bischoff a question about this. Eric, let me just give you a blank slate. Did you see the turn live? Were you shocked? What'd you think?
A couple things before we get into it. First of all, disclaimer, I did not see it live. I was traveling. I didn't see it until about an hour and 45 minutes ago. So it's fresh in my mind. That's number one. Number two, what was your second question?
What'd you think?
Here's what I want to say before we get into what I think. AEW news. What's up with the Amazon Prime?
Didn't see it, have no knowledge, but love to hear more.
It is breaking, and I just saw it, and I thought perhaps you already knew about it.
I did know about it, but I don't know all the details. I knew they were making an Amazon announcement today, but obviously I'm not going to just go spouting shit off on Twitter, but I didn't know all the details. My understanding is whatever people thought was going to be on PLEs on Max is now going to be on Amazon, but I don't know all the details, so I can't pretend to play the expert here. I've been mortgaging today.
I think to me it sounds promising. I don't know what the situation is or why the change, but it just seems like Amazon is probably a little more user friendly just because it's more common.
What's controversy create, Eric?
Nothing but cash, baby. Nothing but cash.
So if you got one offer, but now you can leverage it to get two, there you go. We're seeing
I never think of that first. I should always talk to you before I have a thought.
All of the dollars, baby. AEW pay-per-view events to be available for purchase on Prime Video for fans across the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. And it begins this Sunday, March 9th, with AEW Revolution from Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles, California. That's pretty cool. It's a multi-year agreement to offer AEW pay-per-view events for purchase to fans everywhere. That's pretty exciting, man, to think that, it is a big platform, and just to be, obviously, if you're not going to be on Netflix, the next biggest alternative maybe is Amazon. And I think this is good optics for AEW to have a lot of their programming on Max, but their PLEs available on Amazon. They're just, my number one rule in sales, Eric, you've heard me say it a lot. You got to be easy to buy from. And I knew some older folks who they didn't have Triller and they didn't understand how to get Triller and things like that. But it does feel like with Amazon Prime being something that a lot of people have, this is good exposure and a good opportunity to be easy to buy from.
Yep. Agreed. Could be good. All right, let's get into it. What did I think? I thought it was beautiful. The turn itself, everything leading up to the turn. And I do want to talk about especially the latter portion of the elimination match with Punk and Cena. I want to talk about that quite a bit. So I want to save some time here. I know we're going to talk a lot about this, but I really, really admired the way the whole thing played out. It was done almost theatrically. And in fact, not almost. It was done theatrically in a way that you would expect to see on a movie set. Only, unlike a movie set, it wasn't a couple lines and cut. All right, let's try it one more time. This time a little bit, none of that. It was live. But the scene played out so well because it was so well written and conceived, and it had a substantial amount of nuance to it. Body language, eyes, head turns, so many little details. And as you've heard me talk about so many times on this show, good television is nothing more or less than the artful use of little details. And the details, the subtleties, the pacing, it was sometimes awkward. and we'll talk about why it was awkward, in my opinion. Things seemed to take a little too long, but I want to talk about why it seemed to me, sitting at home, that it went too long, because it's interesting. But overall, I would say, man, 10 out of 10. Kudos to the writers, to the producers, to the talent, who is clearly working very closely with the directors. I don't know how the show is produced. I don't know who's doing what, but man, it was really, really well done.
Such a special moment in wrestling history. You know, so many wrestling fans had been clamoring for this for years, but we always thought it'll never happen. We've heard allegedly the statements come down that Vince would say things like, that man feeds us. And of course, I think he was referencing the merch sales, but the 2025 equivalent, you know, whatever that may be, to John Cena being the leader in merch sales is Cody. So we've got a top baby face. We've got our superhero. We've got sort of Cena 2.0 in Cody. So we don't necessarily lose the merch opportunity, but boy, if it really is his final year in wrestling, and I believe it is, what a great way to make that character even more interesting in his swan song, don't you think?
Well, I mean, his story more interesting, sure, as a performer. I can't wait to see John as a heel, because he's such a great performer. I think his experience in Hollywood, learning how to act, working with other good actors, maybe great actors on occasion, working with really, really good directors, all of those things, regardless of what you think of what kind of movies he's in. It may not be your cup of tea. It doesn't matter. It makes money. That's why he's still doing it. But learning from and with people to emote and to create a character, and to the subtle little things that are, you know, actors and actresses are good at, that, you know, wrestlers typically aren't, because it's not required. But that experience will make John a much more believable performer, believable character. And I can't wait to see him try on this heel hat. I like it. I like the idea of it. But here's what made me so excited for John. I was thinking about this over the weekend. I don't know how long John's been at the very top of the business. Is 20 years too much, too little? I don't know. 2 decades?
You nailed it. He won the world title in WrestleMania in 2005. So he's been in WWE longer than that, but he became the top dog 20 years ago this year.
Okay. So 20 years at the top of his game as a baby face. If this indeed is his last year, I can't imagine, as a performer with his abilities and opportunity, to not go, you know what, I'm going to check that box before I hang it up, because I just want to see what that's like. I just want to take a walk on the wild side and play with a different character. Because if I'm going out, I want to go out. I want to put the period at the end of the sentence, and I want it to feel like something new and different. God bless him. You know, he's earned the right, and I'm anxious to see it. And I think a lot of people are, but that on a personal level, I got really excited about that for John.
It is really exciting. You know, as Bruce used to say, it's a fresh paint of coat. This is a whole new John Cena we're going to get to see here. And there's lots of different ways they can take it. But one of the things that I've seen a lot of people make the comparison to is the Hulk Hogan turn. We are going to talk about that eventually. But I want to ask what you thought about the idea of involving Travis Scott. I know he might not be somebody who has a lot of album space on your iPhone, but clearly a massive musician, clearly a massive star, incredible following, appeals to a younger generation in a different demo, and it checks a lot of boxes. But whereas once before, you know, we had, when you think about that iconic Hogan turn, Mean Gene is there, Hulk Hogan is there, Scott Hall is there, and Kevin Nash is there, but there wasn't an additional celebrity rub. And in this particular case, you've got one of the biggest musicians in the world today and one of the biggest movie stars in the world today rubbing elbows with John Cena in his final year. Is this like the ultimate rub for Cody? It feels like it.
I don't know if it's the ultimate rub for Cody, but Cody is a part of a really powerful moment, in professional wrestling. Again, I don't think any of it was designed for Cody. I think Cody has earned the opportunity to benefit from the mega power rub that he's getting. No pun on wrestling, mega powers, but he's just getting a massive elevation, working with Rock and Travis, and that's the way it should be. He's earned it, man. He's not there by accident. So I think it's great. As far as Travis, I had mixed emotions when I saw him coming out with Rock. My first question was why.
Yeah.
I start everything off with why, no matter what it is. I want to know why. And it wasn't clear to me. And I went, okay, well, I haven't been watching much, so maybe there's a reason I'm not aware of. But within a very short period of time, moments, I said, it doesn't really matter. He's got it. He's got an edge. He carries himself like he's done it a million times. And he has in his own world, but not in this world. And just the way he carried himself, he brought just a little bit of danger, partly because perhaps nobody knew why he was there. Just one more element of intrigue in the way this whole thing was set up.
Man, it was a crazy circumstance to see it happen live. I understood, hey, they're courting attention. And a fella I'm pretty good friends with, he once did that with Dennis Rodman as a peripheral member of the NWO. And he knew that would get some people talking. And Travis Scott's involvement did get people talking on social media. But maybe at the end of the segment, maybe things got a little carried away. I was watching live with a friend of the show, Cassio Kidd, and he said, oh, damn, he jeffed him. And I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago in Dallas, Jeff Jarrett knocked the ever-loving shit out of Cassio Kidd, and Cassio did not expect that to be that, but it was. And I think everybody could see that Cody was pinned against the mat. It's not like he could sell and move his head. There's nowhere to go. So here it comes, and there's a report out, and I don't know if this is real or not, that it burst his eardrum. Cody is not one to sell it. I checked on Cody after he tore his pec against Seth Rollins a few years ago, and he had that brutal cage match, and their story was out there. And I asked, hey, man, are you okay? And he says, oh, just a scratch. And then when he takes the jacket off at the match, you realize, oh, that is the worst torn I've never seen.
That's the most horrible scratch I've ever seen.
The worst. So when I saw the report earlier this week, and I checked on Cody, and I was like, dude, I saw it, but a burst eardrum? Are you okay? Holy shit. And he replied, didn't touch me. I got a wild bruise somehow, though, and sent me a picture. And I said, well, damn, I'm glad you're okay, mostly. And he jokingly said, the horseman got me. But I just thought it was funny that Cody, even now, is like, oh, he didn't touch me. Now, of course, we know that's not the case. He's sporting a major black eye right now. And I don't know if it's true or not that he burst his eardrum, but buddy, it is a brutal blow that we saw there. And I just love the use of Travis Scott. I know that some people don't like it. I've even seen James Stevenson, who's with us here live. He says Travis Scott doesn't belong anywhere near a ring. I mean, I get that, he was overzealous. He's not trained. He doesn't really know. That was clearly an error. But good gracious, the star power you had there for that moment. I like the way you said it was cinematic, Eric, because I did think they were really careful with the way it was shot and the way it was put together. The execution of the angle, I really enjoyed. Would you have done anything differently, Eric?
Here's where I really enjoyed kind of breaking this down in my own head. And it made me realize, I think, a really important point. When you're in you're in a live event, Elimination Chamber, PLE, pay-per-view, big deal, right? You've got two audiences. You've got the live audience, and then you've got a television audience. Your job as the performer is twofold. You have to entertain the people watching at home and keep them very much in the moment. It's not as difficult with the PLE as it is with the television, because people could very quickly make fast decisions and then go back to the original one if they don't like what they go looking for. You don't have that. You have more of a captive audience with a PLE, right? But still, you're serving two masters. You're serving the live crowd. You're serving the television audience. In this case, they were serving me as a television viewer a little while ago when I went back and watched it. And for me watching, I'm saying to myself, too much dead time. I get it. You want the drama to build. You want people to start asking themselves what the hell is going on. But you don't want them to ask that question of themselves more than once or twice. If it keeps dragging and they're asking themselves the third time and they don't have an answer, they're going to start disconnecting. You hear wrestlers talking all the time about ring psychology. This is viewer psychology. It just is what it is. But as a performer, so you've got your television audience, they're reacting at a certain velocity based on what they're seeing, right? But you've got a live audience that's reacting to not only what they're seeing live within proximity, but they're also feeding off of the energy from the people around them. Therein lies the magic of live event television. That energy, that vibe, as they used to call it back in the day, that energy that happens when you've got 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100,000 people all in a room, so to speak, in a venue, and everybody's excited or angry, it compounds the impact. The only way people at home get to see that is it's kind of like this particular show is lagging a little bit based on notes that I'm seeing. I'm not sure why, but the same thing, it's interesting because the same thing happens when you're producing a live event. You're getting a reaction time from the crowd that's a little bit different than the reaction time from people at home because they're reacting to two different things. Similar things in some respects. They're reacting to the action of the things they see in the ring, but the energy that's driving that is much different. Here's where it gets further complicated. And this is why I think professional wrestlers, the good ones, the ones that really understand it and are at the top of the industry because they do understand it. No different than musicians or actors and actresses in any other form of entertainment, truly. But so you've got to serve two masters, but ultimately the people at home aren't going to ever feel anything that's going on inside of the ring unless as the performer I bring that to them. I turn up the volume on that as best I can, do whatever I can to get the crowd into me, whether I'm a baby face or I'm a heel, whether I want them to boo them or cheer me, my opponent. I mean, that's the psychology that goes on inside of the ring. And the psychology inside of the ring is to try to get as much emotion from the audience that eventually ends up at home, but there's a little bit of a lag in between. And that's why sometimes I think watching a scene play out, especially in wrestling, where you don't have a lot of narrative to kind of keep things moving. It's a lot of body language narrative as much as anything else, especially in the scene we just saw, or I just saw. That's a little different pace and getting the reaction from the crowd so that eventually the people do feel it at home. Sometimes that time lag is a little awkward, but now I kind of understand why it exists. Here's what happens if you don't take enough time to maximize that crowd reaction. You rush through the scene, whether it looks rushed or not. You move quickly through that scene because you don't want it to drag, right? My initial reaction, don't want it to drag. Dead air's dead air. You move through it at a quicker pace. The audience never really reacts in a way that is communicated to the audience watching at home. Does that make any sense to anybody other than me?
No, I think it makes total sense.
Okay, good. I thought, man, after all that, if that's a bunch of bullshit, then I'm out.
I can't believe that people in the comments are even having a debate about Travis Scott. I'm seeing some dumb motherfuckers like Sean H, who says biggest musician. I've never heard of him. I see other people who don't know shit who would say they have no idea who Travis Scott is and can't name one song. I'd like to remind you, he has 58.8 million followers on Instagram and he posted this video of the John Cena heel turn. I want to repeat that. He has nearly 60 million followers on IG. So you may not know who he is, but nearly 60 million people do. And last year, they streamed him on Spotify over 11 billion times.
So Conrad, can I say this?
Yes.
And I don't mean any disrespect for whoever made those comments. To each their own. I don't care. Doesn't affect my life. But back when I first broke into wrestling, and every day afterwards, anytime I talked to an quote unquote old timer, which was someone that was maybe 15 years older or older than me, and they all came from that 60s, 70s, 80s kind of era. The common, you talk about somebody that was new breaking into the business, or, coming in for a big opportunity, or bringing in from, somebody from another organization. It's like, oh yeah, well, who do you ever beat? This is kind of like the wrestling fan version of why is he even here? Who do you ever beat?
I don't know any of his songs, but
yeah,
you
right?
know who Ricochet is.
Right.
I mean, no disrespect to Ricochet, but you know who Ricochet is, but you don't know who Travis Scott is. You motherfuckers ain't got Google. You can't throw it in there and see there's 60 million motherfuckers who know who he is. We're trying to get as many people as possible to see this. We've got a bona fide movie star in The Rock. We've got a guy who had 11 billion streams last year. And you're like, I didn't like it. Why didn't they bring back Bret Hart? Man, what the fuck are you doing? This is a huge opportunity for WWE. And I get it ain't for you, Bubba. It's not for you. It's so kids who were born in 2010 will tune in and watch this. Wrestling is for kids. You have aged out. You're still in, and I'm here with you. Look at these grays. I earned them the hard way. But to say, I don't see his purpose in wrestling. Are you fucking serious? 60 million followers, Eric. 11 billion streams. It's a huge opportunity, and I hope Cody heals up nicely. I do want to ask you, though, we've got a bunch of questions. Let's just hit some right here. BT23 says, Eric, longtime fan of yours. For a person having been involved at point with both WWE and AEW, is there anything you see that AEW can come close to what happened after Elimination Chamber? I mean, the answer to that is no, Eric. They don't have a John Cena, right? They don't have a. I mean, that's not a thing.
Yeah, I think it's unhealthy to compare AEW to anybody else. AEW is doing AEW things. WWE is doing WWE things, and they're doing their respective things in their respective universes. They're not the same universe. Why would you compare them? Why would you compare a T-bone steak to, I don't know, 6 ounces of yogurt? They're both from an animal. So I guess, they're the same thing, right? They're not.
Well, what I was getting at is, how can AEW have a 20-year history with a character? We've got 20 years of
we're saying the same thing.
We got 20 years of established character with John Cena. That's the reason it was so shocking. Like, I think Orange Cassidy could maybe be there 20 years from now, maybe, because that would be a big shock or something like that. But I'm saying realistically, we're so far away from a 20-year look back that I don't think that's the reason the Hogan thing worked. It's not because he was an iconic character and he got over his huge baby face for 5 or 6 months or 5 or 6 years. We're talking about he was on top for 15 years, and now Cena's been on top for 20 years. And I know he's had some sabbaticals here and there, but I think that's the difference. AEW just doesn't have the history. And respectfully, I don't know that there's another turn in wrestling right now that could come close to what John Cena's turn meant, right?
No.
Yes.
No. 20 years of not only equity, but equity built on major currency, that being success. There is nobody out there that could possibly do what John Cena did. That person doesn't exist. I mean, we'll talk about this in the comparison between the two and why they're really equally great, but quite a bit different. But let's just move on. I'm going to go into the weeds and we're going to run out of time.
I do want to talk a little bit about the comparison because lots of people are asking that sort of thing. Like, we've got a question here from 82 Atlantic who says, had Sting turned heel during his prime in WCW, do you think the audience reaction would have been on the same level as Hogan and Cena? So we know that Hogan is one of the biggest turns of all time. I know for a cup of coffee, they tried to do some things with Sting. Earlier in his career, he was a heel, and maybe for a week he was in TNA. Would a heel Sting turn or Sting turning heel, would that have had the same impact that Cena did, do you think?
Nope. The platform was bigger. The WWE platform with Cena for the entire 20-year run was bigger. Let's be honest, the platform for Sting was really on an equal playing field for about 3 or 4 years. Just, again, more impressions, more fan base, just more of everything. So it wouldn't have been on. It would have felt that way to really hardcore fans of WCW, of course. But if you're talking about the broader general audience, absolutely not.
We know that everybody is at least talking about and comparing this turn to the Hogan turn. One of the major differences that I think is interesting to note is that when Hogan turned, we got the big promo. You see the photo there. You know, it wasn't just he turned. We heard exactly what was behind the turn, what he was thinking, why he did what he did. He sort of aired his grievances, if you will. We didn't see that with John Cena. And I can't help but think that was the right call here, because by not saying anything and him showing up at the press conference and just dropping the microphone, we all get to talk about it and wonder, when will we see it next? What will we hear next? And they've already made a post that came out as a tweet earlier today showing some of the markets that he's been announced as attending. So we know he's going to be at WrestleMania. I'm sure we'll be at some others along the way, but you see May 30th, he's in Knoxville. June 13th, he's in Lexington, Kentucky. June 20th, he's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. These are going to move tickets. If those buildings weren't sold out, they're about to be. I think this makes total sense to take your time. That is different, though, than what you did with Hogan. If you were in charge and you had your hands on the wheel this past weekend, would you have had Cena do an in-ring promo like Hogan did in 96?
No, absolutely not. I think they did the right thing because it's a version of a cliffhanger.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a physical cliffhanger. It wasn't like, 6 guys running in, beating the hell out of one guy or 2 guys, or jumping somebody in the locker room, or any of that kind of crazy stuff that you always see. That's so common, it doesn't really even get your attention anymore. This is a version. This is what I mean about the creative and the nuance and the different ways they're doing things and telling stories, and how subtle it is, but effective. This is a nothing more, nothing less. This is a cliffhanger. I think it's brilliant. Don't answer it. We've talked about this kind of thing before, Conrad. The more you can get the audience to ask questions about what's going on storyline wise, the more you're winning. The more information you give them, the more likely it is you're going to satisfy their curiosity. And maybe they think it's cool, or maybe they just decide it isn't. Why take the risk? Why not keep them hanging on, especially if you know you're going to deliver something really cool? I think it was absolutely the right thing to do. I'm a big believer in cliffhangers, as if anybody that watched Nitro during my run didn't already know that. This is just a different version of that.
Max Steele is with us here, and he says Hogan's heel turn changed wrestling. Cody's heel turn will not. Or Cena's heel turn will not. Cody's not big enough to elevate the heel turn, and Cena's not Hogan. Well, I don't know about all those comparisons, but clearly Hogan turning heel changed the industry. It created the NWO. It forced change within the WWF. I don't think this is going to force change. I don't even think that the WWF needs change. It was pointed out to me that, at this point, we kind of know what almost everyone's doing at WrestleMania, except Roman Reigns. And it wasn't that long ago that WrestleMania was the Roman Reigns show. I mean, you turned on SmackDown, you're going to see a 17-minute entrance, and we're going to have multiple bloodline segments. And right now, we don't know what he's going to do at WrestleMania, and no one even seems to be talking about it, which means there's an opportunity. There's more story development to come, I'm sure. But I just don't see this being the boon to business that the NWO was, that Hogan's heel turn. It can't, right?
Different time, different. Yes. Everything was different. Here's, though, structurally, let's reverse engineer this. If we go back and watch the turn, the moment, the kick to the balls, before that, if you go back to Rock doing the slit his throat thing, the whole thing, if you watch it play out, and when it's all over, watch the people standing around the ring. got a great reaction. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't the reaction that Hogan got. If you go back, you put those get 2 TVs, 2 monitors, whatever, put those 2 finishes side by side. Forget about what's going on inside of the ring. Just watch the crowd. Oh, yeah, and then there's all the garbage that came with the crowd. The reaction to Hogan's turn on an emotional scale of 1 to 10 was probably a 9. I think on an emotional scale, the Cena turn was probably around an 8, 7.5. And that just has to do with a lot of what we talked about earlier. 20 years of being that baby face. What it comes down to, Conrad, is shocking. No one expected it. No one would have. I don't think I heard any of the chat. I know, granted, I've been busy the last few weeks, busier than usual, and I haven't stayed close to what's going on in wrestling. Anybody that follows me on social media has probably recognized that other than a few trips on the plane, I haven't been very active lately. But I just don't think this will get the kind of buzz and reaction that the Hogan turn did. But that has more to do with, like I said, what we talked about earlier. And a lot of it has to do with the nature of the wrestling audience. It's bigger for sure, but it's different. It's a different time, just like it is for movies and television. The audience's taste is different. I don't think it's not as big as the Hogan turn in terms of its overall impact. I agree with whoever made the comment, but it's not because it wasn't extremely well done. It's just because of the timing.
The one advantage that the Cena turn has over the Hogan turn is the number of impressions that this will have will far exceed. Now, of course, the difference being social media. If social media existed back then, boy, it would have just melted down too. It didn't. So you're going to have a lot more impressions with Cena, but I don't think he's going to start some heel faction that sets business on a tear. And I mean, listen, they've been selling out. I guess what I'm trying to drive at is when all the seats are sold, what else is there to do? Like everywhere they go, they're setting a new arena record. They're selling out all their tickets. They're crushing merch. Like they're batting 1,000 right now. And this is just the cherry on top. But boy, was it well done. I really enjoyed it. I appreciated it. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, though, is they had Cody, who is our babyface. He's our new Hulk Hogan. He's our new John Cena. He's our all-American hero. He's the American Nightmare. And we had him into a microphone tell Rock to go F himself. And I wondered, what would Eric think about that? It is controversial. Where do you land on it?
If you would have asked me that 2 years ago, I would have said, nah, doesn't work for me. It's not the right character, number one, not the right audience, and not necessary, to be honest. But within the last 12 months, I've noticed across the board that F-bombs are just no big deal. I don't care if you're a politician, if you're a sportscaster. I've heard more. In fact, I've heard more politicians coming out and having their staff writing speeches that have F-bombs in them because they come as naturally as, I don't know what. It's so unnatural for them. You know that they're just attempting to kind of sound relevant. So I was kind of numb to it, and I'm normally kind of sensitive to that. I think the word fuck is going to, in another couple of years, just be as common, and it's not going to be that, oh my God, I can't believe you said that, there's kids watching. That train left the station a long time ago.
I got to ask you this great question that we got from Dan. He says, should The Rock or John Cena, should they have been on Raw the next night? I say no. What do you guys think? That is interesting because we didn't see Cody on Raw. We didn't see John Cena on Raw. We didn't see The Rock on Raw. Now, we don't know what's going to happen on SmackDown. Do you think they should have followed up on Monday night, or were they right to switch gears and instead have Rhea drop the title and that fabulous promo from CM Punk? Are they loaded enough now they didn't have to do it? They can let it breathe a little bit because they do have several weeks before WrestleMania. Would you have put him on Raw or no?
No, man, leave them wanting more. Make them want it. Don't just give it to them. Make them want it. And you do have, it's timing, pacing. Again, I've never laid out a wrestling match. I've listened to about 10,000 of them be laid out, so I understand the concept, but I've never actually done it myself. And when I've been a participant of in-ring action, which has been very limited, to be honest, listening to people who lay out matches on a regular basis to this very day fascinates me. It's just fascinating. What was the question? I can't remember why I went off on this tangent.
Well, we were asking, do you think John Cena and The Rock should have been on Monday Night Raw?
No, I don't think they should. I think they should take their time, pace themselves. We've got a lot of time between now and WrestleMania. This is where I was going. When you lay out a wrestling match, you are laying out essentially a roller coaster of emotion. Face comes in strong, and heel comes and gets some heat, and then there's a comeback. Yay! And it's like a roller coaster ride. And there's variations of that roller coaster ride. Well, pacing for television is the television version of pacing a wrestling match. Only you're pacing the story, you're pacing the drama, and you're balancing it with everything else that's going on in that card. And I think the way it was done, again with the cliffhanger from Cena, leave them wanting more, old showbiz saying, I think everything they did was, and this is why I sound like, I know I sound like a paid spokesperson for them, and I'm not. Let's make that clear. I'm not. I just think the nuance and the subtleties in everything they do, including the pacing leading into WrestleMania, is just, God, if it's not perfect, I don't know what is.
Man, I've wanted to show you this for a while. I saw you respond to it on Twitter. I waited as long as I could. I can't wait to get your reaction to the old tweet and delete from the one and only Dave Meltzer. Dave was responding to a tweet that says, my latest for NoDQ.com, where I theorize what the motivations were for John Cena and his turn both in and out of the ring. And Dave quoted it and said, the motivation is that Dwayne wanted Cody legit. And I know this as a fact because a mutual friend last week mentioned the politics, as Levesque absolutely thought it was a terrible idea. But in a fight with Dwayne, with Nick as arbiter, he loses every time. However, several convinced Cody to simply refuse. So art was a lot like life this time. Dwayne couldn't go after Cody politically, so he let it go. Cena was the second choice, and Cena was fine with it. Punk was never asked. I find this interesting because it's rare that you see Dave peel back the curtain, if we're to believe this is true. I, for one, believe with every fiber of my being that Dave Meltzer is in regular communication with The Rock. I don't know if it's by DM or text, but you can just pay attention to Dave's reporting and know that that is a fact. What do you make of this tweet and delete, Eric?
Every time I read something or hear something from Meltzer, it's like I would imagine eating a fistful of mushrooms and a couple of hits off the bong and going into a theater of the absurd performance in Venice Beach. The guy's just freaking bizarre. I don't know why I'm not doubting that you're right, because I don't know why you feel as strongly as you do. I haven't seen evidence that you've obviously seen. I can't imagine for the life of me why in the name of fuck Dwayne Johnson would ever spend a minute talking to Dave Meltzer unless it was to fuck with him. And because it's so easy to play him because he is a mark. He may hate that word. He hates it because it defines him and he hates being called one, but that's what he is. And perhaps if there is a regular communication, it's because Dwayne's having a blast fucking with him, like I know a lot of other people have. So I don't know. But it's like every time I read this stuff, it's like, oh my God, I got neural pathways that are inside of my head. You know, it's kind of like the little, like the tubing that goes from your brain and fires different, or the energy that goes from one part of your brain to the other part of your brain. It forms thought, right? That's just how you go through your day. Neural pathways, it just communicates everything. They're like telephone wires in your freaking head. Well, mine catch fire trying to figure out what this cat's about, other than he's a very insecure individual that is desperate to convince people that he knows things about the wrestling industry that he absolutely has zero clue of. He's very good at convincing people that know less than him that he knows things, because he is intelligent enough to read the trades and have conversations with people who like to chat about wrestling. And, you know, he can put together a sentence that sounds like somebody that knows a little bit about the wrestling business, not because he does, but because he knows how to sound like he does. That's how he's built his whole gimmick. So, yeah, he's a bizarre little fellow.
It makes me wonder, though, what's the motivation to delete it? Was he oversharing and got his hand slapped? Did Rock go to him on Twitter?
Here's my theory. Here's my theory. And I've said this before. If Dave has a contact, and I believe he probably does, it is low level. It is, as it has, not necessarily, I can't say I'm aware of an intern that was definitively communicating to Dave, or anybody else like Dave, any other parasites out there. But I can't say I am aware of interns in the past who have been caught communicating things that they should not have communicated to people like Dave. It happens, especially with interns or people in, you know, early management, positions that really haven't figured their shit out yet. And a lot of those people just have a need. They want information. They're new on this job. This is exciting for them. They've never worked in the entertainment business or the wrestling business. And man, I want to find out more. I want to know what's going on with my own company. And before you know it, these idiots are communicating to people like Dave. And then they find themselves caught because they communicated something that they probably were one of a small handful of people who could possibly have known. And when it gets out, it's not too hard to find out who did it. So my guess would be, if there's anything that makes any sense in this, it's that he was probably talking to some low-level intern-ish and had some kind of a relationship with him, trying to get information or give information, just like, Terry Taylor used to do, and a lot of other people used to do, by the way, not just Terry, Ric Flair, others, probably Hogan from time to time, because everybody they could use Dave. So they would establish relationships with Dave because they knew he was so easy. He's the definition of a useful fucking idiot. He's so easy to use because he so desperately wants to be recognized as somebody who's part of something that he's not. So he does dumb shit. And he sounds like, perhaps he got caught.
Well, we asked the fans, everybody watching here, what do you guys think happened? Why did Meltzer delete the tweet? 50% think that Meltzer deleted because he was wrong and he got found out. 40% think he made it up, and 10% think that Rock made him delete it. Whatever it was, it is interesting to take a look at a tweet and delete. Want to give a shout out and throw a little love to Ryan A. Appreciate you being here with us. He wishes that you would grow your hair out and dye it black again, Eric. Instagram Wrestling Historian says Sting and Goldberg both being heels in WCW was bold. Ryan A. says, you mean a cliffhanger like when Warrior kidnapped Beefcake? Seven Deuce says, have Trump open Mania. You'll get heat and cheers. I don't think they're going to do that. Jay Reactions says, Eric, how would you tweak Cena's look? Would like Hogan traded in the red and yellow for the black and white. We've seen, I think Rock used to call it a dozen years ago, Fruity Pebbles, all the neon colors and the bright colors that John Cena would come to the ring with, and they just rotate those colors to sell the same shit on a different shirt. Roll Tide. What would you do differently?
without thinking about it for more than a minute or 30 seconds, I wouldn't gimmick him up. I mean, he'd be a t-shirt and jeans guy. He'd be more like Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, kind of nothing colorful, no glitter. You know, Rock's got the Liberace thing going on. Let him have it.
No more jorts, though, right? No more sneakers.
No. Nothing that looks like what we're familiar with for the last 20 years.
Yes.
But nothing overly animated either. Like, just imagine this whole time, the person John Cena has conned the entire world, including Vince McMahon and everybody else, that he's really a good guy. And he's been playing everybody for 20 years. And now it's like, nah, no more. I'm going to show them the real John Cena. Let that John Cena be completely different from the character that we've come to know, but in an authentic, non-gimmicky way. Because the minute you gimmick him up even a little bit, first of all, he looks like he is a human gimmick.
Oh,
he looks like he was made in a machine. He's perfect as a physical specimen. So the more you dress him up, the more unauthentic it feels. Put him in jeans and a cutoff shirt, just have him kicking everybody's ass until he gets.
I can't wait to see, this new version of John Cena. I mean, I imagine we're going to have new music, new colors, new gear, new promo style. I don't know if this is true or not, but there's even been speculation online that we all know his fabulous work he did with Make-A-Wish, but supposedly WWE has trademarked Break-A-Wish, which would, I don't know, man. Wow. Steve Cortman says, what do you think the favor that Heyman owes Punk? So, of course, this is the thing that we saw a few months ago, back in November, when Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns were trying to recruit CM Punk to be on their War Games team. The deal was made. Punk is owed a favor by Paul Heyman in the future. We don't yet know what that is, but we did see Punk cutting a promo on Monday where certainly he talked about Seth Rollins, but boy, he took his time talking trash about The Rock and John Cena. And if this really is John Cena's farewell tour, his final year in wrestling, you got to think they want to recreate the magic from 2011 and have John Cena, perhaps this time as a heel, wrestle CM Punk maybe for the title in Chicago. I can only imagine that would be nuclear heat. How do you think they get there? Will CM Punk join this evil new faction? Will he be the baby face? How does the favor come into play? What would you do with Punk in all this?
I don't know. I can't book on a fly with something like this. I don't know. It would be fun to, next time we talk, which is going to be tomorrow evening, I've given that some thought, and maybe we'll throw a couple ideas over towards Paul Levesque and company and Mr. Pritchard. But I do want to talk about Punk. I know we only got about 12 minutes left. I think I'm becoming a Punk fan.
Oh my God.
In fact, no, it's not. I think I'm becoming a Punk fan. I have become a Punk fan.
I think hell has just frozen over.
No, it really hasn't. Because when I explain why and how I arrived here and why I wasn't a Punk fan, it'll make perfect sense.
Okay.
At least to me, and that's really all I care about. It's not true. It just sounded good. Look, I didn't watch Punk a lot when he was ascending in WWE, so I can't say anything about his work. And when I say work, I don't mean ring work. I just mean overall work, his ability overall. And I certainly don't think I've ever watched one frame of video from his time on the indie scene. What I became aware of, and I was a neutral Punk fan. I didn't care one way or the other. That's another way of saying it. Neutral sounds nicer though. I was ambivalent about Punk before he got into AEW because I didn't know anything about it. I saw him at a couple signings or conventions, maybe once or twice, and I was kind of within 30 yards of him, and I was watching him, and he's really good with the people, and that's the only impression I had of him until he got to AEW. And I'm not going to, talk about it all again. We've already talked about it to death, but he said some stupid shit, in my opinion. In my opinion, he showed his ass by going for cheap heat right off the bat with his Hogan comments. I mean, that's so easy. So all those things gave me my first real impression of Punk. On top of that, generally speaking, he didn't look that good in the ring to me because I wasn't familiar with his character prior, because I didn't watch him. What I saw in AEW made me go, I don't know. Guy looks like shit. I think I'm in better shape than he is right now. And he's just, seems tired and just doesn't really seem too interested. And he'd get these big wins against these young guys, because that's how I remember him being positioned often whenever I saw him, is he's in there giving the young guys a shot, passing the torch, as it were, right? That's kind of the way he was positioned. And every time he'd win, he'd hold that belt. It looked like he just saved a baby from a burning building. I went, man, I ain't buying it. I don't see it. And now I watch him. I watched him a little while ago, and there was Cena in the Elimination Chamber match. He's amazing. His timing is completely different in WWE than it was in AEW. His ability to emote in a believable way absolutely is different in WWE, because I didn't see it. And what I did see made me go, quit crying, man. Just pick that belt up and go home. Raise your fist, be happy. Why I always got to cry? How am I supposed to be excited about a baby face that cries all the time? Fuck the crying. Man up. That's the way I felt about him. So you combine that with the way he was being presented. Didn't know how bad it was at that point. I didn't know the politics that were going on backstage. I was unaware of any of that for the most part. But just what I saw of him made me go, I think this guy's way overrated. And I just got done watching him. While I'm watching that match, I'm thinking, and by the way, he brought out the best in Seth Rollins, which kind of elevates him even a little more. And not only did he look good and he did his stuff great, but he elevated Seth, in my opinion. They each elevated each other, which is when, you connect with the ball and it goes out of the park into the parking lot. And that's what those two did. So my opinion of Punk went from neutral to shitty to very impressed. And a lot of it had to do with that match that I just saw a little while ago.
I gotta give you some props and some love for loving on. I can't believe this is real, CM Punk. But welcome to the CM Punk fan club. I do want to point out JTH about 6 minutes ago came up with an excellent idea. We're talking about new catchphrases or new paint a coat for John Cena, and he wrote, "Just give up. You can't be me." There is a lot of fun little catchphrases you can alter just a little bit and just be a little tongue in cheek with it. I can't wait to see what they do with it.
I like the "you can't be me." I mean, that's
you can't be me.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. I don't know who came up with that idea. We should get a record of it. And actually we should cut a deal right now to trademark "you can't be me." Because that could be a shirt. Call Dawkins. We should get him on the phone right fucking now while we're doing this show, and get him on there, do a trademark search, and go to it and trademark that bitch for t-shirts, because that's a t-shirt. You know why it's a t-shirt? Because a lot of wrestling t-shirts, if you want to get laid, you're not going to go to a wrestling event, get your favorite wrestling, fanboy t-shirt or fangirl t-shirt, and then go to a bar and hope to have any success at all. It is not going to happen. Not. However, with a shirt like the NWO shirt, it's why it's still one of the top sellers to this day. There hasn't been an NWO in 25 years, but it's one of the top 10 merchandise sellers in the WWE catalog 25 years later. So what I'm saying isn't my opinion. It's a fact. What works with the NWO is, yes, if you're in the club, you're a part of the NWO fan club. Even if you're not a part of the NWO fan club, you're a part of the wrestling fan club, and you go to a wrestling event, you are showing everybody who you are and who you were aligned with. You're making your statement, and everybody knows what it is. Then you go down the street, maybe to get lucky. None of those women know what that means. So you can wear the same shirt on both occasions. That's how you sell t-shirts. It's that freaking simple. It's got to identify with what you're passionate about, and you got to be able to get laid while you're wearing it. Well, at least for a minute. And here's the thing. You Can't Be Me could be that t-shirt. Think about it. You wear that shirt into a bar, says you can't be me. That's making a statement. Here's the best part. It's going to piss half of the room off, and the other half is going to think, that's pretty cool. Well, you just zeroed in on a much smaller target, right? Just got to think ahead.
I want to give a shout out to Bush and Ryan.
No reaction whatsoever. No reaction.
Buddy, I'm multitasking over here.
I'm
first,
sorry.
I'm disgusted with WWE, Dwayne and Paul not making sure Travis knew what he was doing. Stop these gimmicks. And two, I have Starcade 91 Battle Bowl on my YouTube playlist. Never have I enjoyed anything like Battle Bowl. Thank you, Eric. So getting some love for some shit you did in 91. Good for you.
Well, actually, I didn't even do it. I didn't do it. I was there.
He's giving you a compliment. Can you take the motherfucker?
I can't take somebody else's compliment. That's Dusty Rhodes' compliment.
Just do it. You take credit for the NWO, and that was Greg Gagne's idea. We all know that. You take credit for Nitro, and Mike Graham created that. You know that.
That's right.
Walrads says, Eric, what'd you make of Zelensky at the White House? So disrespectful. How about Noop? Thank you for participating today, though. King of Games says, should Vince have let Shane run WCW after the buyout? Could Shane have kept it going? I don't think so, Eric. No chance he can keep it going, right?
I mean, there could have been a great story there. It wouldn't have been.
Well, they tried it, and it was a piece of shit.
Well, that's because the story was a piece of shit. It doesn't mean it wasn't possible. It just means they weren't able to figure it out.
I'm just saying, when Dusty got the UWF, he fumbled. When Vince got WCW, he fumbled. I don't think this has ever been done successfully.
Yeah, well, I wasn't aware of that history, but you're probably right.
Ryan says, not to be hating, but does Cena's bald spot distract? I'm almost like, you know what? Let's go the other way. I don't know if he could do this with some of his Hollywood commitments, but if he would go with the Stone Cold look and shave his head off and totally alter that, I think that could be cool.
What if he shaved his head? First of all, it doesn't matter in Hollywood because it's fucking Hollywood. They could put hair on him anytime they want. So he could shave his head and, grow a pair of breasts, and they'd find a way to work around it. Did I just say that? That's weird. Why would I say that? Trying to make a point.
Dr. Ross says, Travis Scott, the new Dennis Rodman. I don't know about that. I mean, listen, Dennis Rodman was at the center of all the media landscape back then, but I do think that this is just a new era with social media. It's a little different.
Yeah, much different. I still think he brought value.
Oh, no doubt. B40 says, Conrad, Google image Jimmy Jamison 1980s for this question. Eric, in the 1980s, were you ever confused for the lead singer of the rock band Survivor? It's Jimmy Jamison. Have you seen this fellow before? I don't think you probably got mistaken.
No, that's a good looking dude, though.
All right. Come on now. The Insight says, do you feel if both companies right now stuck to just one night of programming in a week, it would be a better product? Just Raw and Nitro, no SmackDown or Thunder. Just Raw and Nitro, no SmackDown or Thunder. So I guess what he's trying to pitch is, in the modern era, if we just said, see you later, SmackDown, and we're going to do once a week on Raw, maybe we said, see you later, Collision, and we're going to do once a week on Dynamite. Do you think the companies would be stronger as a result of that? Or is it really about the bottom line? And hey, we're getting paid a lot of money for these TV rights. We can't let that go, right?
It's always about the bottom line, and it's always about growth. You're either growing or you're dying. And if you have an opportunity to grow and make even more money and expand your footprint, you don't have a choice. You have to do it.
Seven Deuce says, Cena turns heel and Eric loves Punk. The end is near. And actually, we ran a poll, and over half the fans here with us live say that Eric baby facing Punk is more of a shocking turn than Cena. So how about that? Isn't that crazy? They just know you hate him so much. They're more shocked by that than Cena kicking Cody in the balls. Ask a Bum wants to know, did you ever meet Bad News Brown? Did you ever cross paths with him?
Yes, I did. He's a good dude. I always enjoyed my time with him. Very, very respectful. Number one, always had an interesting thing to say, a little bit of news every now and then. And he was just a pleasure to talk to. So yeah, I knew Bad News. Look for almost every time I went to New York, I ended up seeing him.
Well, listen, we've had a lot of fun breaking down John Cena's heel turn. I can't wait for us to talk about it more. I have a feeling we're going to be going live sooner rather than later. It feels like this is just the beginning of a major story. We're going to cover it each and every time it happens on the way to WrestleMania. So if you haven't already, now's a reminder, go hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications bell. When Eric's at home and handy, and even when he's not, man, he's got his phone, and we'll figure out a way to give you these live reactions. We want your feedback. We want those questions. So be sure to join us next time and keep those questions coming. Hit it right now, 83weeks.com. Hit that button. Eric, any final thoughts as we wrap up our hour-long conversation about John Cena turning heel?
No, I'm very invested. I can't wait. I'm happy for John on a personal level. As a fan, I'm anxious to see where it goes. It's about that time. We're just about close enough now to WrestleMania. We're watching, or at least catching up on a regular basis, because it'll be a little bit more of a priority because it starts getting good right about now. It's kind of like, in the NFL season, when November rolls around, first part of December, it starts getting good. And that's kind of where we're at. So I can't wait to watch, man.
Check it out, 83weeks.com. We're going to be covering it every step of the way as this story continues to evolve. Want to show some love to BT23 and 7 Deuce for joining us. We really appreciate you guys being a part of our live stream, and hope that you'll join us on the next one. And I'm excited, man. We know we're going to have a big SmackDown on Friday night, and we know that Saturday night is a Collision. And by the way, Queen of the Ring comes out this weekend, and then an AEW pay-per-view on Sunday, and then Raw is back on Netflix. It is a full-time job being a wrestling fan right now, Eric, but it's rare that you get a storyline like this that gets us all excited. So I'm ready. I'm ready for Monday Night Raw. I'm ready for SmackDown. Let's go.
And I'm ready. I'm ready for you tomorrow. We're going to do an episode of 83 Weeks. I think rumor has it, maybe live.
That's exactly right. Thank you for the reminder. As a reminder, we will be live this time tomorrow night, 5:00 Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, and we're doing Ask Eric Anything. So if you're watching this and you're wondering, man, I wish I had a chance to see this live, I would have asked, come ask it tomorrow. That's all we're doing tomorrow. It's Thursday night, March the 6th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. Ask Eric Anything, and we're doing it live. So we'll see you tomorrow night right here on 83weeks.com.